Okay, when training, it's really important for you to understand some of the naming techniques that we have here, our naming systems, or at least mine when I'm teaching. So let's go real quick here when we're going over the sword here. Let's go over the anatomy of the sword. We'll go ahead and take this trainer first, and then we'll go over it with an SCA stick. So first of all, we have the blade, which is obviously the sharp and pointy end that goes into your opponent, right? So everything up above this hilt is the blade. It's like the business end. Everything down here, we refer to as the hilt, right? So this is the blade and this is the hilt, divided here at this line. So when I talk about the blades, often I'll talk about certain ways to strike with it, and I'll mention different parts of the sword. So first of all, the area of the blade that's facing away from you towards your opponent, we call the front edge or the foredge or the foreblade. I often call it the foreblade. That's used to throw a lot of snaps, cuts, cleaves. And then we have the back edge, which is used to throw wraps, the back blade. So we have the front blade, the back blade. Then we have the point, right? Which is, I just refer to as the point, not necessarily the tip, that comes later here, but the point of the weapon. So when you're striking, you need to know 3 different sections of the blade. There's a variety of schools that have different nomenclature for it historically and everything else. But I just call this bottom third the short of the blade, this middle third, the mid blade, and then this the long blade or the tip blade. So you got the long, the middle, and the short of it. And I'll refer to these when throwing specific techniques, cuts, snaps, cleaves. And it's important that you know, because if you're doing a technique and you're not going to strike with the proper section of the blade, it's not going to hit with the proper force. So you got the foreblade, the back blade, the short of the blade, the mid of the blade, and the long or the tip or the far part of the blade. So that's the blade. You know, we're not going to go into other details of actual swords, fullers, and ricassos and all that stuff. We don't need that on the single sword descriptions. So the hilt is back here. Basically, the hilt is the handle, right? And that includes the guard section. It also includes the grip section, and it also includes the pommel section. This is the hilt. When they talk about burying your blade to the hilt, they mean all the way to here. So the hilt is, for us, our purposes, is the pommel, the grip or handle, and the guard, whatever shape it is. On an SCA sword, you'll often see like a basket hilt. We still refer to that as the guard. And then it'll still have a grip in it, and a lot of times it won't have a pommel. So those are the parts we really need to understand when I'm talking to you about training with the swords. Now let me go ahead and grab the SCA stick real quick, and we'll just go over that one real quick, and its specifics. It's slightly different, obviously. This one's beat up because it has a lot of mileage on it, right? So we got the blade. The blade is from this hilt upward. Now we don't have a classic hilt. We don't have a classic cross hilt. So, but the designation is that whole business end, that is your blade. So again, we have the foreblade, which faces away from me towards you, because that's the business end. And then the back blade is on the back side. So when I say hit them with the foreblade strike, you hit them with the front. When you hit them with the back blade strike, you hit them with the back edge. And then this is the point, you know, on an SCA stick. And then we divide it again into thirds. You'll often see people wrap their sticks with like tape to designate these third areas as well, sometimes half areas, but I do thirds. And so you get the bottom, the short is down here, then the middle section is the mid blade, and then the long section, the far section, the tip section is the last third. Then the hilt, unlike a regular sword, doesn't have a cross guard on it. This has a full cup hilt. You can see your hand goes in here and it like wraps around. This is still the guard. And then we have a handle, right? And then where we'd have a pommel, we don't really have a pommel. It's just taped off. Now you can add some weight here. I generally don't recommend it, but some people do. More unique to an SCA stick is you'll often have a pad up top. I double pad this because when I stab people with the stick, I like to actually stick them with it instead of just touch them with it. So, and then you have lanyards. You have a variety of different types of lanyards. Now, lanyards are things that hold the weapon onto your hand. Some people will use a trigger, which is just a loop that comes down from the front of the stick around 2 or 3 fingers, sometimes 4 fingers, inside the hilt. It's just a loop that comes down inside, and you just slide your fingers in there, and that can act as a lanyard, and it helps you guide the stick. That's a trigger. I use a wrist strap with a buckle, T-strap, wrist strap. I find that it is really, really good for fighting and throwing a lot. I mean, because when I'm training people at practices or whatever, I'm blocking and throwing, for their sake, hundreds and hundreds of shots. So it gets, you know, it's a lot of work. So it retains it really well and helps you with your wraps and all that. So a little wrist strap with a buckle is pretty good. You can also just run a cord off of there and wrap it around your wrist or whatever. Just anything to prevent your weapon from flying away into the crowd whenever you swing it and you miss or it gets jostled somehow. So that's the anatomy of the sword. For SCA, like I said, you're going to be dealing with SCA sticks mostly. So the blade, the foreblade, the back blade, the point, the long part of the blade or the tip blade, the mid blade, the short blade. Then you got your guard, cup hilt, basket hilt, even a cross guard, whatever, suba, whatever you have there. You'll have your guard, then you'll have your grip and a pommel possibly on your one-handed swords, and then you'll have some sort of lanyarding device. And like I said, I recommend padding the upper interior of your stick pretty good. So that's the anatomy when we talk about it. So you won't be really lost when I say, you know, okay, yeah, this is a back blade strike with the short of the blade. You'll know that, oh, you're hitting with the back side at the bottom. So that's the anatomy of a sword, a regular training sword and an SCA stick. Just remember it and refer back to this if you have any questions. Alrighty, next video.